It is podcasters, rather, who insist upon making it difficult for life to exist upon this planet. The birds, coming up next.
Haven't Seen It with Tim Siskito and Tommy Tevenay. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Thank you all so much for listening today. This is a podcast where one of us is watching a movie for the very first time, and today that is myself because Tommy has seen The Birds before.
Yeah, when I was a little kid, so I barely remember it, so it counts out.
And also, I just want to say in your opening line, yeah, podcasters do make the world a much more difficult place to live in. So
yeah,
like
that was the
truly
bird person I was talking about. She was talking about podcasters the whole time.
That 80-year-old lady in 1963 foresaw everything that was about to come. She knew that there's just going to be obnoxious people on TikTok posting their clips. But we would never, ever do that. You can follow us on TikTok at Seen It Pod, also on Twitter and Instagram at Seen It Pod. But we would never, ever do a plug like that. So obnoxious. Oh my God, we're way above it. You know, follow and share with your friends. Helps grow the podcast. Thank you.
5 stars.
But we would never, ever do that. So Tommy, The Birds, very interesting. Diving into Hitchcock, diving into an old movie, which for you feels like more of a me recommendation. I haven't seen a lot of Hitchcock, so like we can definitely dive deeper into like Vertigo. We can dive into Psycho. We can dive into a lot of the big boys.
I'll admit I'm kind of with you right there. I haven't seen the majority of the Hitchcock movies. I've seen just this and Psycho at this point.
So you haven't seen Rear Window?
I haven't seen Rear Window. That alone we can
do. We should just do April should just be Hitchcock month, and we just do Hitchcock movies.
This is a preview of Hitchcock month right here. Well, the reason we're doing this movie this month in March is because this movie is actually about to celebrate its 60th anniversary. March 28th, 1963 was when this movie was first released. So 60 years later, we're still talking about the buds. Da buds.
Da birds. And
da birds.
Even though it's technically da bears, but when we're watching like The Birds and any movie that's like 1960, like I think there's only 2 actors from this movie that are still alive, right? It's just Tippi Hedren.
This is a weird thing that always happens when I watch old movies where I'm like,
and Veronica Cartwright and Tippi Hedren are the only 2 still alive.
Yeah, like she's dead. He's dead. I'm sure one of the other kids might be
I'm sure a kid's still alive, but yeah, it's one of those thoughts when you watch an old movie, or especially if you watch like The Wizard of Oz or like
Gone with the Wind. It's a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life.
Back in December. Yeah,
but the little girl was still alive.
She's still alive. Yeah, she's still one. But yeah, there's somewhere it's just like I'm scrolling through the Wikipedia pages of the list of the actors right now. It's just like was. It's like
yeah, and I think with this movie, before we dive deeper into it, like takes a cast of people that have some good credits, but none of them are like outstanding, like leading, like notorious leading men, leading women, and really like elevates them. And for something that's like kind of like a schlocky sci-fi concept, it's really elevated, and it's just such a good blend of character and horror. So that way, when the horror starts, you actually feel something for your characters. Hey, Hollywood, maybe you should watch The Birds and apply some of these practices into your movies.
Yeah. This is the rare disaster movie where, like, you know, you're actually kind of compelled during the scenes that aren't the disaster part of it. So we'll dive deeper.
Where you're learning about character motivations. I know this is very, very, very difficult things very tough. It's not like they were doing it 60 years ago, but
yeah. Shocking. No.
All right, Tommy. What did you watch this past week?
All right, so I guess following out on the footsteps of us watching Rocky for our episode last week, I decided to finally dip my toes into the Creed franchise. So I finally saw Creed 1 for the first time, and what a fucking movie. I think I might have liked it maybe even more than Rocky, or at least on the level of that. And that might be a little bit of a hot take, but I think like Creed really gets the kickoff of like all this requel shit that we've had lately of like like how there's
Soft
been Force
reboot. They're
Awakens.
called soft reboots.
Well, I call them requel because I saw Scream 5, so
No, they're soft reboots. It's where you take the original concept, take some of the original players, throw them in with a new leading person to
yeah,
carry the franchise, the torch of the franchise. But I feel like Scream's different because like Courtney Cox is in every Scream movie.
she still is. Yeah,
Yeah, what's the lady that's the main lady?
Nev Campbell, she was in all of them except for 6.
Yeah, because they didn't want to pay her.
Yeah. But same thing with Rocky. I mean, that's what happened with Creed 3. Creed 3 came out this month too, and no Sylvester Stallone. But in terms of the overall discussion, I mean, like this movie really introduced Rocky's character in a great way. I mean, it gave Stallone a lot of meat to chew and like a lot of things to chew, where it didn't feel like it was just like here's a random cameo by Sylvester Stallone. So it's the same universe. It really was like a fully fleshed out like narrative, and Stallone had some scenes where I was shocked that he could still act.
Wait, you mean it didn't start? It didn't end the movie with Creed walking into a boxing ring like atop a mountain, and then seeing Rocky with a hood on, and then he turns around and he hands him his boxing gloves. Like they don't do that to leave
No.
some stupid teaser at the end that they had no plan to follow up with, and then made a disaster of a movie following it. You mean they didn't do that?
No, they didn't do that, and they didn't pull the Last Jedi, which I'm a defender of. That's a different story.
Yeah, that could just end up being the podcast. Let's not go.
Yeah. We would talk about the birds if we got on that subject, but
there's enough terrible discourse about the Last Jedi online that we're above. We do not need to contribute to that whatsoever.
But back on Creed, I mean, I'm excited to check out the rest of the franchise. I'm gonna try and watch 2, and I'm gonna maybe see 3 before it leaves theaters because I've heard good things about 3. But so far the Rocky franchise, I think I have a new favorite franchise I like, so I gotta watch the other Rocky sequels too.
Yeah, you definitely have to watch the Rocky sequels. They have a lot of charm to them. I've never actually seen Creed. It makes me want to actually like sit down and watch Creed. I don't know. I think when it came out, it was when the Mets were in their World Series run in 2015, and obviously that was my number. Like that was literally my life's priority at that point in time. I couldn't get enough Mets content, but I went back into theaters 25 years, in fact, and I watched Titanic.
Ooh.
In 3D.
So did it add anything for 3D?
it literally added -0. There was absolutely no reason to put Titanic in 3D other than James Cameron being an obnoxious prick and being like, if we're going to re-release Titanic, we're going to make people wear ridiculous sunglasses for 3 hours, and they're going to get absolutely nothing from it.
Just to be an asshole.
But Titanic, I had seen it, I don't know, 10 plus years ago, but last time at this point. Really fun, really great. Like I see why it's one of the biggest movies ever. It's one of those like my thought of it was like, James Cameron is considered the most iconic action director of all time. I don't think that's a hot take.
Not at all.
And he was just like, how do I make an action movie that will actually get women into the theaters and actually care about the action stuff? Because like the first hour 20, hour 30 of Titanic is just the love story between Jack and Rose. And then the iceberg hits, and that's the rest of the movie, basically. I will say my hot take on this, I like Leo DiCaprio. I think he's one of the most iconic leading men of our time. I don't think he's fantastic in Titanic, and he's really getting by on his good looks in that one.
Really, you think that was mostly just charm right there?
I think it was charisma? Charm. I don't think the performance, like he just like his dialogue felt really awkward at times.
Well, if there's one thing about James Cameron
in delivery,
there's one thing. Yeah, there's one thing about James Cameron I learned from like rewatching Avatar recently is that he does not know how to write dialogue for the most part. It depends on the movie, but I wouldn't call that his strong suit whatsoever.
Yeah, but at least unlike other influential directors from the 1970s, 80s, he actually knows how to write a story around them. So even if the dialogue's awkward, it's not as brutal as, say, a science fiction fantasy epic that came out in like the 90s, 2000s. But again, we're not going to dive. We're not going to dive into that. We're not going to dive down that route. we're not
going
to
way too long to realize what you're referencing right there.
I know it did, and I didn't say its name kind of intentionally,
specifically
to just not get into the discourse about it.
But but yeah, I don't remember much about Titanic. I mean, would you say it's worth revisiting? Because I only saw it when I was a little kid.
Absolutely. I would even say that you only saw a half of it, probably, because your mom probably blocked out your eyes when Kate Winslet's boobs come out. And
I mean, maybe I saw it in theaters. I don't remember.
Yeah, your mom definitely was just like, Tom, you can't see those. And so then you theoretically did not see the whole thing. So we could, in theory, then do Titanic. And we've both seen it in theaters, kind of, except for you, where you didn't get to see Kate Winslet's boobs.
I think I missed the boat on that.
Yeah, you did. Well, a lot of people on the Titanic missed the boat, if we're going to be honest on it. But really fun movie. Definitely one worth discussing, because 25 years does not feel like that long of a time, but like, I can't imagine Hollywood. I guess Avatar is kind of the same thing, where it's like, it's this franchise that nobody cares about, but it still makes like billions of dollars somehow.
Still don't get it, but whatever.
Yeah, it does feel like Avatar box office 100% inflated. Like, there has to be some kind of manipulation going on,
some fudging of the numbers or something.
Oh, I mean, 100%. Like, nobody talks about it.
I think it's so funny that at this point we've talked about like Avatar 2 probably like maybe like 5 times on the podcast, and I still have yet to go see it.
You don't have to go.
At this point, it's a matter of principle. I'm like, fuck that. No, I'm not seeing it.
Honestly, Tommy, I think you'll kind of hate it. So
that's why I haven't seen it.
Yeah, anything with you that has to do with like anything fantasy is just like a snooze fest. So
yeah.
I don't want to put you through a burden. But what wasn't a burden to watch is The Birds.
How do you do? I'm Alfred Hitchcock, and I want you to know about my latest motion picture, which will be coming soon to your local theater. It is called The Birds, and for that reason we thought it would be appropriate if a bird informed you about the details. Go ahead. Don't turn. Go ahead. Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds. Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds stars Rod. On second thought, perhaps it would be more appropriate if I gave you the details. Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds stars Rod Taylor, Jessica Tandy, and Suzanne Plachette, and introduces Miss Tippi Hedren.
Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds, in color.
So I that's longer than normally the TV spots we put up, but it was so like 1963. They have no idea what to do for television spots at this time, so they just have Alfred Hitchcock standing in a room in black and white, and then Tippi Hedren on the side, and the bird like giving the.
Well, that was like a weird like trailer thing they did with Alfred Hitchcock a lot. I remember like the trailer for Psycho. At least one of them was literally just Alfred Hitchcock walking around the Psycho house, being like, "Look at the terrible things that are going to happen in this motel," and like, I'm telling you, it's going to be scary. You go and see it. But at this point, like, what director would have that fucking like name brand where like it just have a trailer just be them talking at this point? Like
Tarantino.
Yeah, like him. Apparently, Zack Snyder.
He's got a cult, man. He's got a cult following.
He's got a cult. Yeah.
We're not entering this discourse. You're teeing me up here to go down the path of
Let's talk about the 3 movies that we talk about maybe way too much on the pod. But anyways, but
we watched a good movie. We're not going to discuss bad ones.
Yeah. But regardless, I think that's not a thing that you'd see nearly as often. I mean, you have like a director like intro, be like, "Hey, here's the trailer for my new movie. Thanks for watching," or something like that. But like, wouldn't be selling it just off the creator himself. I mean, like, did you spot the famous Alfred Hitchcock cameo in this one?
Doesn't he just like walk out of a store? Isn't that him?
Yeah, he's walking some dogs out of a pet shop at the beginning of the film.
Yeah, that was like, that's Hitchcock when I saw that. But yeah, I you know what they do now though is before movies, like especially Top Gun Maverick, like they have the actors doing a pre-roll, like just like thanking the audience for like actually leaving their
Thank
house.
you, God, for making my career. Yeah.
Thank you for leaving the house. Top Gun Maverick made a lot of money, and that's solely the reason. It had nothing to do with the movie. People just heard that Tom Cruise personally thanks them for coming out to the theater. Like he gives
Take that Blue's Clues video.
Yeah, it's strange. It's strange, and but I've noticed that before other movies too, that they've been doing that.
It definitely has been happening a little bit more and more, where it's just like all of a sudden out of nowhere you'll have like director and actor like at the end be like, "Thank you so much for seeing it." I'm pretty sure. God, I'm forgetting what other ones have done that, but I feel like one of the Marvel movies have.
Marvel movies have done it.
Yeah,
I feel like any movie that's like made by a major studio that isn't hitched to a big franchise, they do that too. Where they have to, they're like, thank you, just from the bottom of our hearts, thank you for making sure this doesn't flop, or doing your part to make sure this doesn't flop. But right, that's what people have to do now. They have to do their part and make sure the rich people in Hollywood make their money.
I know where I'm spending my money.
Yeah, I know where you spend your money, Tommy. It's pretty much on horror VHS and DVDs.
Yeah, supporting the artist. Not really, because it's secondary.
Yeah, well, so the birds. Tommy, for you said you saw this when you were little. What stood out to you when you were a kid, and what stood out to you now that was like a big difference for you in terms of like, obviously when you're watching it with your 7, like all the dialogue parts are going to be the most boring thing on the planet. But
yeah. I mean, I definitely think that like in terms of everything, like the acting was a lot better than I remember. In terms of like the overall feel, I mean, there definitely was some parts of this movie that obviously feel dated. I mean, this movie's 60 years old, as we just said, but
green screens feel dated.
Yeah. Well, those are called like yellow screens back then, or whatever. That definitely felt dated. The special effects in itself, but it's still like there's just like a menace. I mean, what I remember the most from this movie, like before I watched it again today, was the ending, obviously, of just all those birds just chilling there menacingly. I mean, we've seen that being parodied in like The Simpsons and like other like pop culture stuff over the years, but still, it's just so striking and so haunting especially because a lot of those are actually real birds on set.
Yeah, so one of the clips we have pulled up here is it's right when the birds attack the kids out of the school. And it's just, I think the horror of it comes from like the sound design and just like the lack of music and just letting the sound be the primary point of fear, because you don't think of birds as terrifying, which is like clearly like kind of the concept of the movie is like, you don't think birds just flying around like scary, but what if they all just get together and try to attack a town? Like what would happen? And I just think the way the sound mix goes here, it's like that's where the power of this comes when they're trying to rescue the kids from the playground.
Melanie, I want you to go as quietly as possible. Do not make a sound until I tell you to run. Then run as quickly as you can. Now, does everybody understand? Yes, all right, John, you lead the way.
So if you were just scrolling through the podcast, like timestamp wise, and you just happened to drop it on that clip of just like, wah, wah, like the birds just making sounds, you'd be like, what in the fuck is going on? But that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's my little bird sound right there.
That was pretty good. I mean,
I should try talking like that and rest. Yeah, a little
that one just made it sound like you had a bad burrito, to be honest. But
we're working on my bird call right here. Well, one thing I just want to talk about, like that scene, is first of all how stupid their fucking plan is. Why don't you just keep the kids like inside like the confined space they're already in, instead of like risking it all or whatever. That's what I was thinking the whole time. Like, you didn't need to leave the church. You could have been fine. Like,
well, they weren't at a church; they were at a school, and the problem is that the school had giant windows, as she has in the conversation with the mother before, who's witnessed the feed guy being killed by birds in the house. So that's why she came there. And yeah, I mean, it's a terror. It was an awful plan, without even a question of a doubt.
Yeah, it is funny because, like, obviously this movie, like, for the most part, is pretty restrained as a 6-year-old movie, but for the time, it must have been shocking. Like that scene, the bird eater, how you see his eyes just plucked out. Even today, that got me. Where I was like, "Oh God, that's just horrifying." But you can imagine, like, if this movie was made like today, or even like 20 years later, in like the 80s or whatever, you would have seen, like, in that scene of, like, them running down the hill of, like, all the kids, like some kids just getting, like, just fucked up by a bird right there. Like,
well, you do see a
these,
kid
like,
get fucked up by a bird. The
like,
girl,
a little bit.
she like has blood just rolling down her face and her glasses smashed. Like,
Well, yeah, but she's alive. What I'm saying is that the 80s,
they would have killed kids in the 80s.
Yeah,
really, the question.
Yeah, by the 80s would have been like, kids dying like fucking gory ways from birds and stuff like that. But this movie obviously doesn't need that. Hitchcock is a little bit classier than that, but it's just very shocking, like horrifying. We're like, oh my God, like the kid just getting clawed and all these different, like, scratch marks you see on every character. It's just still very suspenseful.
Well, the reason they don't have to do that, as we alluded to earlier, is that they basically spend the first, like, hour 20, hour 30 of this movie, like, it's just character drama, and it's kind of mysterious in terms of Melanie, who runs into Mitch, played by Rod Taylor, who was fantastic as the leading man in this, at a bird store. He knows who she is. We don't know anything about her other than her appearance comes off very wealthy, well put together, and that he's looking for lovebirds for his sister's birthday. So she goes, picks up lovebirds, then tries to drop them off at his house. He's not there, then goes up and wants to surprise drop them off at his house, which was just bizarre.
To meet cute.
I wouldn't call, I guess you can call it a meet cute, but like, she's like, she finds out that, like, what the sister's name is, so she drives up to the teacher's house, played by Suzanne Pisnet, Annie Hayworth, and, like, asks about the kid's name, like, oh, what's the Brenner kid's last first name? And she's like, oh, it's Kathy. Like, just discloses that information. Things that teachers probably wouldn't do at this point in time. A random stranger just comes to your house and goes, I know this student's last name. What's their first name? Probably not.
Yeah, little
today.
stranger danger right there.
Little strange, but it was just a simpler time where you didn't have to worry about people being weird mutant freaks, like trying to, like, kidnap children, I guess. It was a simpler time, Tommy.
Yeah,
we didn't have 24-hour news networks to instill the fear of God into all of us.
It definitely is a thing, though. Like, the kid performance in this, Kathy Brenner, played by Veronica Cartwright, who's been, like, Alien. She's been in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. She's, like, had a great career in, like, the 70s and 80s, especially. So it's amazing seeing her pop up here, but her performance is really good and really comedic throughout. I just love, like, throughout the movie where she's like, "Can I bring the lovebirds with me? They're not attacking anyone." And everyone's just like, "Fuck your birds, no." Just no birds in this car whatsoever.
So I guess this is time. I haven't looked up any theories because I don't care what other people's theories are. It's just my personal theory of why are the birds attacking? And I think there's one or two reasons. One, it's the lovebirds disrupting, like, the bird ecosystem in that area coming in, which is just crows and seagulls are the only two in that area. And then two is the mother, Lydia Brenner, played by Jessica Tandy, who's also terrific. She's calling the guy who has her chicken feed, and she was talking about how the feed for the birds was bad. And so I wonder if it's one or two things: is the feed that some of the birds are getting bad and, like, cross wiring their brains, or is it like symbolic in terms of, like, the lovebirds disrupting an ecosystem or something like that?
I personally think that this movie is a prequel to Cocaine Bear, and this is just Cocaine Birds. This wasn't the bird feeder.
except this is so much better than Cocaine Bear. It's like they're not even on the same like
I'm not
stratosphere of movie.
disagreeing with you, but yeah, I mean, like you can imagine it right there. Just make that the sequel to Cocaine Bear. Just make it Cocaine Birds or whatever.
Cocaine Birds, just like they hit the fan of the plane that they're getting dropped off of, and like all these birds are just on cocaine.
Just full of coked out, just like pecking people even faster. That's my theory.
Yeah, I just feel like, I mean, I don't really like care about the theory. I think it like the mystery adds to it, and I just respect Hitchcock so much for not putting some random exposition dump like explaining it, because the characters ask over and over, why are the birds doing this? Yeah. And then there's that great scene in the diner where the mother attacks Melanie, or not, doesn't physically attack her, but like verbally assaults her. Like, all of this started happening when you came into town. Like, you're the problem. You're the reason this is happening to us. And she just slaps her in the face. Which is, I feel like, is Hitchcock's way of saying, like, that's not the reason. Like, we're not going to explain the reason to you, but that's not the reason. It's just a weird phenomenon.
This specific one isn't.
Like, if you,
well, it's scary when movies do like that. Do that, and like they don't explain what it is. You don't need to have everything handheld. I mean, like, I think a movie that's kind of a good like spiritual, like in some ways, is The Mist. In some ways, where it's like people trapped in a building attacked by monsters. So that movie similarly doesn't explain what's going on. It's just scarier when you're like, oh, this random fucked up thing just happened. Because it's more true to life. We wouldn't have some scientists being like, I know what it is.
Yeah, like if they I'm sure there is a remake of this, but there would be some science character being like, there is a specific bolt of lightning that strikes down every 140 years. Well, this was recorded in 1848 or whatever the hell.
That's what I like about the bird lady character, is that you think that she's going to be that type of character where she's just going to be in the movie throughout the rest of the time, where like they bring her to like help stop the birds because like this lady knows about birds, like we need to get her in front of like something, or like, you know, she explains away what happens or something like that. But instead, like, she's in that one scene, she sees the birds attack and she's like, I'm out of this movie.
She was just, and she's just she's like a dismisser. I love that bar scene with the guy, the drunk guy, who's like it's the end of the world, like the Irish drunk guy, and everybody like he just interjects it like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, everyone's just like, oh, come on, crazy Ralph, whatever.
Well, I think it's interesting when they're at the restaurant and they have all the townspeople like in chaos, like trying to figure out what happened, because this is right after the bird attack on the school. There was the attack at the party, and then the seagull attack on Melanie when she's on the boat. Those are the only 3 instances of birds attacks at this time. There hasn't been anything mass induced on the town, and just hearing like the disarray of people in terms of what they do and don't believe, it just shows like the strength of the script and Hitchcock's directing that just like elevates a story like this.
About the end of the world.
These weren't a few birds.
I didn't know there were many crows in Bodega Bay this time of year.
The crow is a permanent resident throughout its range. In fact, during our Christmas count, we recorded...
How many gulls did you count, Mrs. Bunny?
Which gulls, Mr. Scholes? There are several varieties.
The ones have been playing devil with my fishing boats.
Have you had trouble with gulls?
One of my boats did last week.
This young lady was hit by a gull only Saturday.
Deke, I'm still waiting for those Bloody Marys.
Going right up.
Could you ask them to lower their voices, please? They're frightening the children.
A whole flock of gulls nearly capsized one of my boats. Practically tore the skipper's arm
You're
off.
scaring the kids. Keep it low.
Yeah, but he's scaring me, too. Are you trying to say that all these... that sounds impossible, Sebastian.
Jake, look, I'm just telling you what happened to one of my boats.
I feel like it shows like the ensuing chaos of something, and it feels very natural to what would happen to any town if you put a group of people finding out about a supernatural attack that just is against nature and what we assume of the creatures of nature. Because Mrs. Brenner even said, she's like, birds, there are 10 billion birds in the world. They have lived in harmony with humans for, you know, thousands and thousands of years, and all of a sudden they've declared a war on us. Right, and it's a very fair and valid point to have on the other side of the coin.
I mean, this is essentially like a B movie premise, but it's obviously because of Hitchcock is more than that. But this is like a typical scene you kind of need in like your B movie disaster movie of just characters just reacting and just to be like, what's going on? Like, what, it feels very naturalistic and like in a way that like a lot of 1960s acting doesn't feel naturalistic in a way, but for some reason this scene felt kind of like good acting from older movies.
Natural. It's not bad acting. It's old acting is not bad acting. Old acting
it's just different.
It's very It's very play-like. It's very heightened, dramatic. And usually like the way the scores swell, like I feel like there's not much of a score to speak of in this movie,
which aids a ton. I mean, like the fact
100%.
that like, there's some that in the bird attacks pretty much it's just like a droning effect where it just feels almost like a hypnotic in a very creepy and unsettling way. And the way of like naturalistic, I mean, Hitchcock, kids song being played slowly, creepily.
That was so great when she's smoking the cigarette and the birds just start to fill up on the playground with the kids singing that like creepy choir song, and it just builds and builds as more and more birds arrive, and like she turns love that so much, and she's about to send the kids out for recess. Like it just adds that tension, like. And also, I wanted to say, like the blocking in these scenes, like especially in that scene of at the bar where if two characters are going off, there's going to be one person that probably isn't invited into the conversation following around, and then like the bartender, he'll walk all the way over just to try to keep up and like learn more about the conversation, what's going on, like.
It's very cinematic blocking. I mean,
it's very cinematic.
Yeah, it does make it just like more and more like great. Where like Hitchcock is obviously great in terms of like point of view shots and stuff like that, moving the camera around and like pretty much in a static way, cinematography wise. So it makes this really great. I mean, I think a lot of my problems I have with it's older movies, I'd say probably even older than this, is that a lot of times like the camera will just be sitting there, just static as hell, and you're not going to see any movement whatsoever. I mean, like. It's just boring. It's not captivating. It's just like whatever. But
part of it is a product of its time and in budget. In terms of budget, you haven't seen Citizen Kane, which we'll have to cover eventually at some point. We can't just keep doing movies from the 1940s and 50s and 60s.
We're gonna watch everyone but Citizen Kane. That'll be the last.
Is that the last episode of the podcast? Like ever? Like if whenever we hang our hats up.
We'll cover some like 1950s trash, like I was a teenage werewolf or something, but we're not going to cover that.
No, we're not going to cover that. But I feel like watching a movie like Citizen Kane, where the camera's, it's not fully static, but there's a lot of times that it is static because of just the time that it was in. That doesn't matter because it's the angles of the shots that can kind of elevate things like that, right? Like there are examples, and there was a great interview with Friedkin and Darren Aronofsky, that guy loves the smell of his own farts, and they were talking about like Citizen Kane and comparing it to one of his movies that came out where he was like, I think it was, a Triangle of Sadness or whatever it was, where he's like
The Whale.
No, this is from years ago. But he's talking about movies being referred to as classics, and Darren Aronofsky is kind of just shitting on Citizen Kane, being like, it's just okay, it's overrated. And Friedkin's like, no, you don't get to make that decision. That movie is from 1940. There were so many movies released in 1940, and that is like the only movie from 1940 that we still talk about today. Like that movie has lasting impact. Like, you really think your movie is going to have that kind of lasting impact? And he's just like, well, maybe. And Friedkin's just looking at the camera like, get this guy out of here. What a joker.
Get this head out of here.
Get this guy. It was so great. Just an old man being like, get this fucking guy out of my face.
It is crazy to think about like what still pertains to the culture and stuff like that. I mean, Hitchcock 60 years later is still obviously very iconic and like, just like shorthand for a famous person.
And The Birds is probably like, I feel like the scene of Melanie Linsky getting attacked in the phone booth is probably the most iconic shot from this movie. Because that was the only thing I knew. That was the only thing I knew from the movie going in. Oh, can we talk about the ending? How much it did follow the classic horror trope of the main characters making the worst possible decision. They were like, oh, we'll be safe here if we just board up everything. It's like, why don't you leave?
Yeah, just leave the town like straight up. The ending overall, I mean, like it was good, but I was thinking also of like in a modern lens for like, in a more modern movie, like Tippi Hedren would have, when she opened up that door, either she would have died or like some character that was with her would have died in that scene right there, just to show like the brutality of it.
But,
or like
and one of the things that I just loved is, and just because of the birds, like Melanie's character comes in and she's so confident, like so full of like able to use her beauty and her charm to kind of get what she wants. And after she deals with the birds attacks and she gets really mutilated in the attic, or what, the bedroom that the roof claws in on, and you just see her leaving the house, like she is just a changed woman. Like like any of the confidence that she had in herself, she's just terrified. She is not the character that we came to know, and like that's a great character journey in this kind of a movie, which is a B movie premise that would never ever have these kind of moments in it, which is it just elevates this movie so much.
They wouldn't get thought about this like at all. So I mean, like this is one of those horror movies I always think about, like, after the credits roll, like 5 years later, like how traumatized or like PTSD ridden is like the character after this movie.
Yes.
And like in the Birds, Tippi Hedren's character, she'd see a fucking pigeon in the middle of the street, she'd probably have a panic attack right there, like holy fuck.
Yeah, you think she's ever going back to that bird shop at the beginning of the movie? I think not. But it's like when Mitch carries her from the room and puts her on the couch and like finally wakes her up, and she just starts hitting him because she, in her mind, thought she was going to die there, thought she woke up and was still getting attacked by birds. Like it just shows that like real trauma and that real fear of that happening. And it's, for a movie like this, it's called The Birds, and it's just a mysterious bird attack. This movie has no business being as good as it is, and obviously that's just an accreditation to Alfred Hitchcock. And the script. The script is just fantastic too, and written by Daphne du Maurier and Evan Hunter, which I'm not going to pretend I know anything they wrote, but it adds that like elevation, and it adds that gravitas. Like, do you know if there's any information on what Hitchcock, like, did he have any say or influence on the script itself, like in the production?
Well, this was like based on some novella, actually.
Okay.
Daphne du Maurier, or whatever, the person you just butchered too.
Not as bad as you.
Yeah. Well, she made some horror story in the 1952. It was like a short story and novella called The Birds, and pretty much it was very pessimistic, like a lot more pessimistic pretty much out of the movie, or the novella, is like every character has died by the birds except for one person. He just smokes a cigarette and is like, well, I guess I'm gonna die by birds.
I love that. I wish that would not fly in 1963 Americana for a mainstream movie, but I love that ending.
Yeah. So, and the guy Evan Hunter, who ended up writing the screenplay, he wrote for like Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery Magazine, and Alfred Hitchcock Presents, that TV series too. So like they knew them a lot very well and stuff like that. So he pretty much would correspond back and forth. But I mean, like that's the extent of it. So like there's already were bones of this before. This is not a wholly original work by Hitchcock.
Yeah, I knew it was a novella, but that makes sense because it just feels like catered to what he would want from a movie. Like if this was just a B movie script, there's no way Hitchcock signs on to a movie like this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because exactly. I mean, we've seen so many ripoffs of this, or like animal attack movies over the years. I mean, have you seen Frogs with Sam Elliott? Terrible movie. Don't.
Have you seen Cocaine Bear?
Yeah, exactly. Have you seen Cocaine Bear? Have you seen Eight-Legged Freaks with Scarlett Johansson?
This is the best one of these.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean,
I guess like, Tremors is. I haven't seen Tremors, but that's regarded as a classic.
That's a fun one. Yeah, it's fun, but I wouldn't call it on the same level as like this. Would you consider Jaws like
Jaws is its own beast? It created its own category because it's like the shark's not in the movie enough. Like the birds are very prominent in this movie. Jaws is the horror is the unknown of what you can't see, right? If it takes that idea and flips it on its head.
Well, it's weird to think like, we had a lot of like after the success of Jaws, we had like a ton of like ripoffs over the years, like Orca, Killer Whale, The Meg, or something like that. We still have like
Free Willy.
I guess Free Willy. But yeah, we still have a bunch of shark movies to this day of like people being attacked by
Sharknado.
Sharknado, whatever, or 47 Meters Down, whatever the fuck. I'm trying to think of random shark movies. The Shallows. But we know
Piranha.
Yeah, we're never gonna have a remake of Jaws, probably, as long as Spielberg's alive. But
it's coming in our lifetime. I just want to let you know that.
I know, but I think it's gonna come after Spielberg is dead.
It's going to be it's going to be atrocious. But
atrocious. Yeah, but my point I was making is like we have so many shark movies, and I'm shocked that like this is the only real movie I can think of that's like a bird attack movie. There's a Birds of Two apparently in the 90s, but that was like a TV movie, and no one wants to talk about that movie. But like I'm shocked that we haven't seen like the ripoff of this, or like the 2022 version. It's not called The Birds, but it's like and what's the other word for birds? Like not amphibians.
I think this is one of those movies where if you're going to pluck from Hitchcock, it's Psycho. Psycho's the thing that they pluck from Hitchcock, and Bates Motel or whatever. Like they try to redo that over and over and over again because that's the most iconic thing. The shower scene is like one of the most iconic imageries in the movie history.
Yeah.
You're not gonna like The Birds is like 6 or 7 on his filmography. You're taking a movie from 60 years ago and you're going to invest $100 million into it. Probably not.
I mean, yeah, I did get to the extent. I'm just shocked that there hasn't been like any ripoffs of The Bird specifically. Of like like there's Bats, I guess. Bats was one I remember.
This is way more your speed than my speed.
This is some random genre that
you're just naming some you're like spitting off names, and I'm just sitting here like.
Yeah,
Tommy,
these are.
I don't know what Tommy. You do whatever you want with your free time. I'm not sure what you do with your free time, but if it's just studying IMDb of
it's like
terrible animal attack movies from the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, God bless you. I hope you have a great time. Research. Not for me. Not for me.
This is how I spend my Friday nights. Just like search it up, Shudder, and be like, "Oh, this movie's called Alligator. Let me go watch this one. It's about killer alligator. Fuck yeah, that's all you need." And so I need this. Apparently, this movie shows you need more than killer birds and.
Because then you can make a movie that's 60 years old and people still actually want to talk about it in a very positive light because it has all the things that I feel like modern audiences are craving more in terms of just like characterizations and even to the simplest effect. Because like all of these characters, we get their strengths and we get their weaknesses. And like
they have moments of characters just talking about their relationships, like what they want and everything like that. And just like taking moments to breathe.
Moments of vulnerability, which is something that a lot of movies lack nowadays, where they make characters that are super strong, super independent, with no weaknesses. And
or cliches. They're like stock type characters in these movies.
They're just stock type characters. And it's not even in this type of genre. It's just overall. And like we've spoken to the success of Top Gun Maverick on this podcast. One of it is that they just gave these characters simple characterizations, explain their strengths, explain their weaknesses. And like that's all we needed for a movie to become a mega hit that isn't from like a True Blood movie franchise. Like Top Gun had the original, but I wouldn't say it was something that like modern audiences were craving a Top Gun sequel.
Yeah, I thought that wasn't going to do that well at first because I was like, oh, who's going to care about Top Gun?
I thought so too. And then like I wasn't necessarily going to go see it, and then the reviews started coming in being like, this is so good. And I was like, okay, ooh. Okay. Like,
and then now it's like probably like your top pick of movie of last year.
Number 2, the movie that won the Oscar, Everything Everywhere All at Once, was my number 1 of last year.
Before we move on, I want to talk about the Tippi Hedren of it all. How that movie Roar she was involved in.
Yes.
So for those who don't know, Tippi Hedren like runs like a sanctuary for like lions or something in LA. And they try to film a movie
Roar. That's an infamous movie that's covered on Best to the Worst, the Red Letter Media show, where there's just so many injuries on the set with it's ridiculous.
She says that this is probably one of the most dangerous films that Hollywood has ever seen. It's amazing that no one was killed. John de Benoit, the director of photography, was scalped. He was the guy who directed Speed and Speed 2.
Cinematographers have wacky filmographies.
But it's just like, it's so funny that she's like one of her most iconic movies is a animal attack movie, and then she herself made a movie where people are attacked by animals inadvertently. Her daughter Melanie Griffith was like fucking like maimed by lions and stuff like that, like constantly. It's just like, what?
Yeah, it's strange. Roar. Maybe that's one that we cover if we ever do like a bad movie month. That's one that we definitely cover.
I am a star. I'm a star, I'm a star, I'm a star. I am a big, bright, shining star.
Tommy, who is the star of The Birds?
I'm gonna go with Tippi Hedren. I mean, I think Rod Taylor was good in this movie, but I think his part was a little less dynamic and a little less stuff to work off of.
Yeah, he was the least developed of the characters. Like the only weakness that you get on him is that he was a mother's boy and like it struggled with his relationships. But that was kind of the only weakness we got to him. He was like the man of the hour. I think Tippi Hedren just shows like she's the one character that really has a journey in this movie where we learn that like the reason for her promiscuity, which was getting pushed into a fountain in Italy, which that's a scandal at the time. Imagine if we showed some scandals today that don't bomb careers. But if from that point of view to the end where you actually get a character journey from it, and I think the movie does end up weighing on her shoulders, and the only reason she's not the top billed character is because this was her first debut feature film. Tippi Hedren definitely, I think, great, but like the cast overall just fantastic. Also shout out the drunk Irish guy at the bar because just love a guy that's screaming it's the end of the world.
He's great, and Tippi Hedren deserves it all. I mean, like she was great in this role, and like she definitely deserved like a longer career. It sucks that Hitchcock was a fucking monster to her apparently, but that's a whole other thing.
What happened to our America where you could just abuse, mistreat the hell out of your stars just to make a better movie?
He made her fucking replay a scene where birds were attacking her like over and over and over again.
What happened to our America? Oh my God, can you believe that they passed laws where you can't do that anymore? Like, can you believe that? Can you believe that people want fair and equal treatment, Tommy, that they don't want to be abused on a movie set? Can you believe that?
Who would have thought? So just in case anyone can't pick out on sarcasm, we don't condone that.
Yeah, we do. We are an anti-abuse your actors podcast. I just want that on the record. We're also anti-Nazi, anti-pedophile.
And all the bad things.
We want it on the record here, okay? So if you try to pull that clip to cancel us because we're that big of a podcast, go ahead. We'll get into a Twitter beef. I love a good Twitter beef.
Yeah.
That's right.
Are you ready, comedy partner? Waka waka.
Tommy, would The Birds work as a Muppet adaptation?
All right, I would love if they just kept every single human, but instead of birds, it was fucking Big Bird just over and over and over again. Just
Big Bird just bombing people. That sounds like a terrible. Tommy, we have to use the AI generated art and make the birds being the birds, humans
birds,
being
Big Bird,
the birds, but all the birds are Big Bird.
Or Big Bird.
And just like imagine like the scene of the kids running and it's just all these yellow feathers and like a Muppet head. Like that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Disney, hit us up. Hit us up,
right.
Baby. We got the money right here. These are all our ideas. Definitely.
I just imagine people getting attacked where like Big Bird lands on a car and just mashes a fucking car and it blows up immediately.
That would be that would be hilarious. That would be so funny. That's such like I can just picture the YouTube clip that would inevitably come from that idea of just like terrible CG thrown in, and it's just funnier because of that of just like JPEGs of Big Bird, just JPEGs of Big Bird just crashing down on people, and then it's just like I love you or whatever the hell Big Bird says. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
All right, Tommy, review time. Give me your score out of 5.
All right, so this is a very engaging disaster movie for the most part. I do really like this movie. I thought it was really well acted, really well intentionally shot and everything. I'm thinking 4.5 out of 5. So really enjoyed this movie. I think the performances are great, and the special effects, while they do look hokey today, they still work for the movie. So
I'm not gonna crap on yellow screens that they used at the time. It's what they had available. Like that doesn't bother me. I want to give this a 4 out of 5. Like I think when I think of like Hitchcock's top work, this probably isn't it. Like Rear Window for me, 5 out of 5 when we cover that. But this is probably the best disaster movie I've ever seen where they actually like build characters and make you invest into them, give you their strengths and their weaknesses, and like make you root for them to survive. You get to see Hitchcock just be a master of his craft and just fully control probably a level of a genre of movie that's well beneath him and just elevate the substance into something more. If you haven't seen The Birds and you like old movies, you like exploring those old genres, highly recommend it. You'll have a great time. Okay, Tommy, any final thoughts?
Thank you guys so much for listening. You can follow us on social media at Seen It Pod. That's on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And leave us a 5-star review while you're listening. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. We want to mention that we're going to be coming up on the Film versus Film podcast coming up soon. I think the episode comes out this week. We'll be covering Speed
and
versus
Leon the Professional.
Leon the Professional.
Yeah, what I said it on the podcast too, but when I heard that we were going, like, we nominated Speed, and then when I heard we were going up against Leon the Professional, I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
I was like, oh crap, we're getting a real movie instead of like Speed's a blue blood action movie. It's great.
Yeah.
It's everything you want an action movie to be. Where Leon the Professional, like, kind of like
it's a whole
this,
other
where
tier.
it's a whole different tier of movie.
Yeah.
That actually makes you think and not shut off your brain. So I was like, crap, like we're not winning. We're not winning that one. But maybe we do, because maybe we throw it. Who knows?
Maybe we throw it. Maybe we just rig the game for ourselves. But we want to thank them for having us on the pod again. You can also listen to our episode. We had them on The Exorcist back in the day. But other than that, leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. So,
all right. Thank you guys all so much for listening. We'll see you next week.